Dealers, could there be untapped revenue on your lot? Protective Asset Protection works with dealers to unlock new revenue streams through reliable protection products across most vehicle types. Visit protectiveassetprotection.com/automotive news to learn more.
Welcome to Daily Drive for Monday, August 10th, 2026. I'm Kellen Walker in Las Vegas. Today on the show, Ford announces its most affordable vehicle yet, and a new four-door Mustang. Volkswagen is retooling its U.S. playbook with a pickup truck and a new America boss. And Unifor heads to the bargaining table with GM, and talks could get complicated. Plus, we'll hear from a researcher who has literally burned 18 cars to learn the truth about EV fires.
Really, the fundamental challenge is getting whatever it is you're trying to extinguish the fire with onto the fire.
Let's run through all the news you need to know to keep up in the auto industry. Ford gave dealers a first look at how it plans to compete at the affordable end of the market. At a private meeting in Las Vegas, executives previewed a small crossover with a starting price around $25,000, available in gas and hybrid versions, with a target on-sale date of 2029. That would make it Ford's most affordable model, slotting below the Maverick. Ford also brought out an early prototype of a four-door Mustang, promising a starting price under $40,000 and a 0 to 60 under 4 seconds. We'll have more on this story in a minute with our own Michael Martinez. Volkswagen is overhauling its U.S. strategy, and a pickup truck is part of the plan. A company source told Reuters that VW Group plans to bring a pickup to market before the end of the decade, built in the U.S. The German automaker is also shaking up its American leadership. Kjell Gruner is out as CEO of Volkswagen Group of America, replaced by Marco Schubert, previously head of sales at Audi. According to Cox Automotive, pickups account for nearly 20% of U.S. sales. Unifor is opening contract negotiations with General Motors, following a pattern-setting deal with Ford last month. The union represents more than 4,600 members at GM's Ontario facilities, including plants in Oshawa, Ingersoll, St. Catharines, and Woodstock. But Unifor President Lana Payne has already flagged complications ahead, pointing to idled GM and Stellantis plants with thousands of workers laid off as a key point of difference. The Ford deal included 3% annual raises and a no-closure agreement. And those are today's headlines. You can find more details on all those stories at autonews.com. Joining me now is Michael Martinez, who covers Ford and the UAW for us at Automotive News, and he is one of my two co-hosts for the Weekend Drive podcast. Mike, welcome back to Daily Drive.
Thanks for having me, Kel.
All right, Mike, so how locked in are these details? The price points, the timeline, the design, and what should dealers actually take away from what they saw?
Well, we're still very early on in the development of this crossover or sport utility, however you want to classify it. But I think the main takeaway for dealers is that Ford has a plan for an even more affordable product than the Fathom. We've been talking about that $30,000 price point. They're going to go under all the way to 25. Now, again, you got to take it with a grain of salt because price points tend to change from what automakers originally say. And to be fair, Ford isn't even acknowledging this yet. This is something they're signaling to dealers in private. So maybe they should view it more as a goal instead of a firm number at this point. Same for the design. Some of the dealers in the room who saw this thing, they say it looked like a first generation Escape, sort of boxy kind of utility. But Ford was very careful to tell them it's not the final design. They just wanted to give them something to see for a general sense of size. So the final product may not be exactly what they saw at this meeting, but the takeaway is there. Ford is hearing their requests for cheap product. They're hearing their requests for more hybrids, and they're going to deliver soon.
Now, Ford discontinued the Escape not long ago. So what does this new crossover tell us about where the company thinks the affordable end of the market is headed?
Well, I think it's an admission that maybe they do need an Escape or an Escape-like product in their lineup. Now, they've said publicly that they didn't make money on the Escape. They were not happy to end it, but they felt comfortable ending it because they could push those customers higher up to the Explorer and other vehicles like that and make more money doing so. But I think, Kel, we've talked about this on Weekend Drive plenty. The market, there's a need for this type of product at this price point that Ford completely walked away from. They're more focused right now in the present on those higher end Broncos and F 150s. But again, I think this crossover is an admission that there is room on that lower end that they are not meeting right now.
Always insightful, Mike. Thank you so much for joining me.
Thanks, Kel.
Coming up, a fire safety researcher explains what firefighters are really dealing with when an EV battery burns and why the answer might surprise you. That's next on Daily Drive.
Dealerships today face tighter margins, shifting consumer expectations, and affordability pressures tied to broader economic uncertainty. At the same time, consolidation and digital retailing are changing how products are sold and supported. That's why many dealers are re-examining how asset protection fits into long-term profitability and business goals. For more than 60 years, Protective Asset Protection has worked alongside dealerships across the country, delivering trusted F&I solutions like vehicle protection plans, maintenance programs, limited warranties, guaranteed asset protection, and more, helping dealerships generate revenue while helping customers protect what matters most. In addition to protection products, dealers have access to programs, tools, and proven training designed to support a wide range of business models. From digital retailing capabilities to dealer wealth building programs, Protective's approach is centered on partnership, giving dealers the flexibility to explore what fits their operation today and how it may support growth over time. If you're a dealer and interested in tapping new revenue streams through protection products, get in touch. Visit protectiveassetprotection.com/automotive news. That's protectiveassetprotection.com/automotive news.
Welcome back to Daily Drive. I'm Kellen Walker. You've probably heard a lot about EV battery fires and the problems they could pose for drivers, dealers, and firefighters. But it turns out there's also a lot of misinformation and confusion in that conversation. To separate the truth from fiction, a team of researchers torched 18 vehicles common in the North American market, and what they found challenges some widely held assumptions. Adam Barrowe is Principal Research Engineer for the UL Research Institute's Fire Safety Research Institute. He spoke with our own Molly Boygon on the latest episode of the Automotive News Shift podcast. Here's a piece of that conversation.
Tell me a little bit about why you all got started doing this research. You burned at full scale 18 vehicles common in the North American market, and what were you hoping to learn?
That's a good question. We could spend all day on it, but I think the most important part is we really saw a gap in terms of what the fire service needs to know in order to more effectively address electric vehicle fires. So in this particular area, because there are challenges in extinguishing a fully involved electric vehicle fire, there are a lot of products that have showed up for extinguishing these vehicles. And we said, wait, what can we do with equipment we already have? There's 30,000 fire departments across the country. So any one tool is going to be expensive. Let's make sure we fully understand the problem before we go producing any data that says a special tool might be needed. So that's the basis of the experiments.
And why did you feel like you needed to explore further some of the unique conditions of EV battery fires? What was sort of the what was the hypothesis about the way that these fires might behave differently?
I think in part we're actually responding to some sensation. I won't point fingers to where the sensation comes from, but there's this kind of common refrain when there's a new fire problem in general. It's not unique to EVs that fires are burning hotter and faster and lasting longer than ever. When we apply that to EVs, we can say, well, the way we look at vehicles as fire engineers is they're an assembly of things that burn. And when you start looking into what makes up most of an electric vehicle, well, it's the same stuff mostly as what makes up an internal combustion engine vehicle. So we said, well, wait a minute, there could be some things attributable to a battery, but how much of it is really going to be driven by the battery? There's certainly some. So that's why we, kind of jumped in and took a closer look at, like, specifically before we even get to firefighting, what's different with the way the vehicle burns.
Yeah, this was such an surprising finding for me. having covered this issue a little bit, you know that the plastics, foams, and other combustibles constitute a major source of the fuel for a standard vehicle fire, and that type of thing is standard across internal combustion engine vehicles and electric vehicles.
Yeah, I think the eye-opening moment for us, because going into this problem, I viewed it much the same as, well, before we overanalyze it, there's a big ball of fire and it seems to be behaving differently. But as we start getting into it further, there are some platforms, like the Hyundai Kona, for example. It has a powertrain that's gasoline. It has a powertrain that's fully battery. So if we take those components off, basically the chassis is all the same. So we said, okay, well then we know that the problem is basically just powertrain specific.
Right. That makes sense. And there's also been some perception that water alone is not an effective suppression technique for electric vehicle battery fires, and that other technology is needed. What did you find about that added suppression versus water issue?
Yeah, great question. So that gets further into the construction details of electric vehicles. So the battery packs are designed to be hermetically sealed because they're not useful to you going down the road if you hit a puddle and your vehicle dies. So we know that the batteries are very well encapsulated against moisture, and then they're protected by a vehicle chassis. So when we see firefighters respond to a vehicle fire, any type, they can start immediately extinguishing the cabin fire. That's no problem at all. And now it's very difficult to get water to the battery, and even more difficult once you're getting water on the battery to get it inside. And ultimately what's burning is inside. So you have these kind of couple layers of barrier between the firefighters and getting the fire extinguished.
So it's not just about the battery, it's also about that access to the battery and the combustion of the passenger compartment.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's correct. And so, I mean, to go back actually a step to a part of your question. So could other things that you add to water or other types of extinguishing agent work better? I mean, really the fundamental challenge is getting whatever it is you're trying to extinguish the fire with onto the fire. So unless they somehow modify water so it can pass through solid materials, really, we're not seeing any difference there.
Right, right. That makes sense. This is just so interesting to me because it really has been a sort of foundational belief that these issues with EV battery fires are, something that requires special training, special attention from emergency responders. And I'm just sort of mind blown, honestly, because how do you sort of explain the way that this perception has kind of taken off, if you're able to speak to that? Because it's also coming, you hear also, I remember covering an event a while back, a commercial vehicle event, where there was someone from a local fire department who was at the event speaking to journalists and was talking about how valuable it is to have certain electrical currents marked and stuff like this on the vehicle. So I guess, yeah, how do you explain how this sort of misperception has taken off, even according to people who work with fires a lot? It's not just the media or the consumer, it's also the way it's been perceived in emergency departments.
I mean, whenever there's a vacuum of information, it's usually speculation that fills the void. But there is actually, I think, something unique about lithium-ion technology that is also unique, that kind of combines with this issue of being hard to access. And that is, firefighters are trained about the fire triangle, so you've got fuel, you've got oxygen, you've got heat. And the tools they have, like water or maybe more recently, you've seen EV fire blankets. The concept with those is that they smother the fire. But what's challenging about lithium-ion batteries is that they can fail and go into this mode called thermal runaway, where they produce lots of heat and flammable gas, and they don't need oxygen to do that. So they can have this self-sustaining chemical reaction without the presence of what we call diffusion fires need to survive. So now, let's say you can't access the battery of the fire hose and you want to do something like smother with an EV fire blanket. You can do that and stop flaming, but it doesn't mean the batteries stop reacting. And so they can continue to exhaust this gas that contains hydrogen and carbon monoxide and carbon dioxide and some hydrocarbons. But bottom line is it still produces some fuel that can easily ignite, even if you use the fire blanket. So that's where the fire service really feels stymied in controlling these these fires, especially depending on their operating environment. So in the middle of a highway in the Midwest, much easier than a basement parking garage in a city.
Researcher Adam Barrowy spoke with our own Molly Boygon. You can hear the full conversation on the latest episode of Shift, available now wherever you get your podcasts. That's Daily Drive for today. I'm Kellen Walker. Thanks to Automotive News executive producer Jake Neer, as well as our own Michael Martinez and Hans Greimel for their reporting for today's podcast. You can get the latest news on tech and innovation, Ford's affordability strategy, and everything happening in the auto industry at autonews.com. We'd love to hear from you. Let us know what you think of the show and the topics we covered today. Send us an email at dailydrive@autonews.com or leave us a voicemail at 313-444-2774. And if you enjoy the podcast, remember to like, leave a review, and subscribe so you never miss an episode.